So, good evening to everyone, and today we have almost a semi-house of the parliament for the session. Good. So, I hope you all, some of you studied hemolytic anemias and came to the class. Have you? So, hemolytic anemias, as the name itself says, is a premature destruction of RBCs. But the bone marrow being intact, there is a compensatory increase in the erythropoiesis once there is an ongoing hemolysis, and a bone marrow which is working will produce increased reti count, as already what we have discussed. Based on the mechanism, how do you classify the hemolytic anemias? There can be a defect within the RBC. That's the reason RBC is getting destroyed. Possibility 1. Second, RBC may be normal, innocent, going in the street, and it had been attacked by the auto antibodies and there was an immune hemolysis. Possibility 2. 3. If the person is having a prosthetic valve, aortic valve, mitral valve, etc., that will create some friction for the smooth going RBCs to get broken down. Similarly, there are certain entities which are called microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. There will be fibrin clots which will be forming within the vessel. They offer resistance and friction to the ongoing RBC, which will make it break down. So that is microangiopathic hemolysis. And certain entities like snake bite, infections like malaria, clostridium can lead to the development of hemolysis, is what need to be remembered. Now, if you look at the hemolysis, these are all the factors which are external to the RBC. You have some factors which are problematic within the RBC, like sickle cell anemia, hemoglobin C, thalassemias. They are all the problems within RBC which promote hemolysis. Similarly, hereditary spherocytosis, paroxysmal and nocturnal hemoglobinuria are the intrinsic RBC membrane defects, and G6PD pyruvate kinase deficiency are the enzymatic defects which promote the hemolysis, is what we have to fundamentally remember. So that is how outside the membrane, intrinsic to the membrane, we differentiate broadly the causes of hemolysis. Then you have intravascular. When RBC is passing in the blood vessel, there are antibodies against the RBC. They will come attack the RBC and break it down, and the death happens within while it is flowing through the vessel. A broken RBC will release hemoglobin, and that hemoglobin will pass, free hemoglobin will pass through the kidney, and that lead to hemoglobinuria, which is classical of intravascular hemolysis. Second, you have the reticuloendothelial system. If the spleen is enlarged, it can also lead to the slaughtering of the RBC, which is extravascular. Now, always we need to take the history of consanguinity, history of whether they come from any tribe, where the incidence of thalassemias are very, very common, is what need to be remembered. Then we should always take the history of possibility of an underlying mechanical valve, prosthetic valve, that need to be identified. So that is how we approach the problem of hemolytic anemia. Now, what are the important clinical features, doctor? Obviously, when there is a hemolysis, there is a release of hemoglobin, and that lead to bilirubin increased. So there is a jaundice. Now comes the important issue. Jaundice can be because of hemolysis, hepatocellular damage, or obstructive jaundice. 3 kinds. What is very classical thing about the jaundice due to hemolysis? It will never exceed more than 2.5 grams. If the bilirubin levels are more than 2.5, it can't be explained purely by hemolytic jaundice. You should always evaluate LFT. and generally there is some amount of hepatocellular element is there in that jaundice. That is a very important dictum. Hemoglobinuria leading to dark urine is a feature of intravascular hemolysis, and whenever there is a hemolysis and release of bilirubin, it can predispose to bilirubin stones in the gallbladder, which is called cholelithiasis, hepatosplenomegaly. Any of them are the possibilities. Now, what are the important laboratory wise? As we discussed yesterday, a high reticulocyte count, 7%, 8%, 10%, if the retic count is very high, think of hemolysis. Second very important biochemical parameter, clinically we generally depend on this parameter, is increased LDH. If a patient has got anemia, LDH evaluation found to be high, then you should always suspect a hemolytic anemia as the underlying cause. Haptoglobin, what is this? The moment hemoglobin is released, it binds with haptoglobin, and haptoglobin levels will decrease. Once more, decreased haptoglobin is a feature of intravascular or extravascular hemolysis. It is a feature of characteristically only intravascular hemolysis, and it differentiates intravascular from extravascular hemolysis, is what you have to basically understand. Similarly, hemoglobin, hematocrit, both of them will decrease. You find fragmented RBCs called cystocytes. In which type of hemolysis they are very characteristically found? Microangiopathic hemolytic anemias, cystocytes is a very classical feature, is what need to be remembered. Now let us see how cystocytes basically look like. Are you able to see here, doctor? This is the normal RBC, this is the broken RBC, this is a broken RBC, this is another broken cystocyte. So whenever you find and discover this kind of cystocyte, immediately what is your conclusion? It is a case of microangiopathic hemolysis, is what you will basically conclude. Microangiopathic hemolysis mein kya hota? Lot of platelet thrombi will be there. There will be occluding vessels. When the RBC passes through them, it becomes broken, and that broken RBCs will create the cystocytic appearance. Very classical. Even one cystocyte found is equal to microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, is what you have to basically remember. Now this is another example. Whenever there is a hemolysis, what is bone marrow doing? Bone marrow is excessively reproducing the RBCs. Such RBCs will have anisocytosis, different shapes. Hence, how will be the RDW, doctor? Typically will be increased. Red cell distribution width will increase. Can you tell me one more condition where significant anisocytosis will be there? Iron deficiency. Yesterday we discussed, right? That video is available online. You can always rewind and go back in the history. What we have discussed, those who missed the class, you always have a privilege. So doctor, a increased RDW differentiates iron deficiency from anemia of chronic disease, thalassemia and sideroblastic anemia. Increased RDW is a classical feature of microangiopathic hemolysis, and for that matter any hemolytic anemia where bone marrow is trying to compensate, is what need to be remembered. Now a very important question is how brisk, how severe, what is the magnitude of hemolysis? Is there any way to grade it? Definitely. The amount of reticulocytosis and the degree of the fall of the hematocrit, there definitely are the good markers of the degree of the hemolysis, is what need to be remembered. Then there can be helmet cells, sickle cells, hinge bodies. These are all the abnormal cells which can be found in the peripheral smear in a hemolytic anemia. Where do you find hinge body? If there is a G6PD deficiency, what is the role of G6PD, doctor? G6PD basically is a part of pentose phosphate pathway which produces NADH. NADH is required for what purpose? you have a molecule called glutathione. Glutathione will capture the free radicals, oxygen free radicals, and prevents them from denaturing the hemoglobin. But in the process, glutathione will lose its reduced state and it also becomes oxidized. That oxidized glutathione must be re-reduced, for which you require reducing equivalents which are donated by NADH, which are provided by pentose phosphate pathway. If there is no GCSPD, if the pentose phosphate pathway not working, if there is no NADH, glutathione cannot be re-reduced. If there is no glutathione, there is nobody to prevent the free oxygen radical injury of the hemoglobin, and hemoglobin become typically attacked by the free oxygen radicals, and that lead to development of denatured hemoglobin, which precipitates in the form of hinge bodies within the RBCs. Favorite question of the examiner. Where do you find hinge bodies? Hinge bodies are those denatured hemoglobin concentrated within the RBC, characteristic of G6PD deficiency, is what you are going to ultimately remember. If you learn everything now only, what will you learn for the entrance exam? Because ultimately in entrance exam it is the same story. So that is the reason generally everybody prepare for entrance in housemanship. During that time you serve people in the hospital instead of wasting time in the reading room. Okay, so that you get some skills which will help you throughout life. Ultimately when entrance is there, same issues are being asked as MCQs in entrance, that's all. So that is the reason, doctor, clarity in the concepts, that's what we need to all work for. Haptoglobin will be low in case of hemolytic anemia. LDH is elevated in all hemolytics, and there will be an elevated unconjugated bilirubin. And if it is autoimmune hemolytic anemia, Coombs test will be positive. And if it is hereditary spherocytosis leading to hemolysis, osmotic fragility test will be positive. These are all the things that need to be remembered. Then any hemolytic anemia, if I say, tell me 4 laboratory measurements common to all hemolytic processes. There is a jaundice, there is a bilirubinemia, there is a decreased haptoglobin and increased LDH, which are the classical laboratory findings of any hemolytic anemia, is what need to be remembered. So how do you treat, doctor? If it is autoimmune, you need to do immunosuppression. Can you give me a condition where autoimmune antibodies against one's own RBCs will keep continuously causing anemia and hemolysis? SLE patients, autoimmune hemolytic anemia, very common in SLE patients. One SLE patient, if you attend from admission to hospital until her discharge, if she is alive, if you follow one patient completely, doctor,